Good morning. I am Claire McGrew. It looks like we're top of the hour, and I am going to just give it a few minutes so that we have enough time for people to be able to transition into this space. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's Oregon Department of State Fire Marshal Accessory Dwelling Unit Burn Webinar Lessons Learned that we'll have here. Again, I mentioned my name is Claire McGrew. I serve as Chief Deputy here at the Oregon Department of State Fire Marshal. And I really appreciate everybody joining us here today to learn about wildfire resilience here in the state of Oregon. We've got some key partners that are here and are going to be at our virtual table to walk through science, observations, and lessons learned that they experienced from the recent accessory dwelling unit burn demonstration at the Insurance Institute of Business Home Safety in South Carolina, IBHS. Many of you remember last year, we've talked about this quite a bit. OSFM had formalized a memorandum of understanding, and really that's a key partnership that we have between OSFM and IBHS. It really strengthens our commitment to learning about science and how we can put that into play in some of our programs and services that we offer in the state of Oregon. I'm really grateful to IBHS, and you'll meet some of their players here today, as well as to some of the other team members that we have from local areas across the state that were able to join for the accessory dwelling unit burn demonstration. They'll share some of their experiences as well. That burn demonstration really is a direct example of how we're applying that commitment that we have for that partnership for providing a scientific foundation to help directly shape home hardening guidance, defensible space messaging, and really like true collaboration with local partners. So a couple logistics before you get started. So we're actually going to go through some introductions from these panel members. We'll learn a little bit more about what happened to kind of set the scene. Then we'll go through the burn itself, and you'll have some resident experts from some researchers and the senior director from IBHS here. Then we'll go into a little bit about what did we learn, what did we experience, what were some aha moments that we had, and how can we put that into practice in Oregon. And then we will round out with a session at the end. If there's time for a question and answer, and we'll walk through that at the end of the session. So with that, we'll actually get started with some introductions here. So Director Hawks, maybe I'll pass this to you first.
Yeah, thank you, Claire, and good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Hawks, Senior Director for Wildfire at IBHS, and my background is in the California Fire Service, having served with CAL FIRE for 30 years, 24 years in the field from firefighter to battalion chief, and then the last 6+ years working underneath the Office of the State Fire Marshal in a division called Community Wildfire Preparedness and Mitigation, and overseeing programs for the state related to defensible space, home hardening, damage inspection, and so forth. And then when I retired, I had the great opportunity to join IBHS, and I touched on everything we do related to wildfire, from assisting with the research a little bit to post-fire analysis, and then the wildfire prepared program. And I enjoy the work that I do, and continued that work with IBHS because during my time in the field and in prevention, going out on damage inspection, I saw a lot of communities tremendously impacted, including my own community that I grew up in, Paradise, California, from the Camp Fire, and my parents lost their home in the Camp Fire, and seeing the impact of how devastating these fires can be on individual families as well as a community. And it really drives my work to want to continue to do this at IBHS.
Great, thank you so much. Evan?
Morning, everyone. My name is Evan Sluter. I am a research scientist and engineer at IBHS. I'm based here in Portland, Oregon, and my background is actually in fire protection engineering. I've been working on wildfire now for the past 3 years at IBHS. Worked in fire protection engineering, focused on structure resilience. And then prior to that, my graduate studies focused on wildland fire behavior. Had the opportunity to work with Michael Goldner, who's now at UC Berkeley, and the folks out in Missoula, Montana, at the USDA fire lab there. So I'm very excited to be here and be working on this problem with OSFM and folks like Steve. So yeah, thanks so much.
Perfect, thank you. Chief Puller.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Puller. I'm a fire marshal at Sisters Camp Sherman Fire District, Sisters, Oregon. 37-year veteran in the fire service, spent majority of my time here in Central Oregon. Um, and what I was really looking for when I went back to IBHS was with Sisters growing. We a big fire for us last summer. In the last 3 years, really focusing on home hardening, working with the city and defensible space. I was able to really look at those impacts of all those different things while we were there. So that's why this was important to me to go and look at that.
Perfect, thanks, Chief. Chief Grant.
Hi, good morning. My name's Chris Grant. I'm a Division Chief Fire Marshal of Mid-Columbia Fire Rescue in the Dalles, Oregon, right here in the Columbia Gorge. The experience that I have in the fire service, this is my 40th year, but this is my third year in Oregon, specifically on the eastern side of Oregon, and seeing the different fuels and layouts, and then really getting into the wildland setting here in Eastern Oregon has really opened my eyes to the total picture of the fire service, what we do. So having a chance to go back to the learning lab and to see the experiments that took place really kind of, I guess, solidified in my mind the importance of the defensible space assessments that we do in looking at the setbacks from home and the collectibles that we have in our yards and other things for that fire spread from structure to structure or structure to cars and so forth. And it was really exciting, and it really opens the door for a better conversation when I meet with homeowners and do those defensible space assessments. So thank
Great.
you.
Thank you so much. Deputy Fire Marshal Steele.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melissa Steele, and I serve as the Deputy Fire Marshal of Wildfire Preparedness for the City of Bend. That is a brand new position as of September, so almost been in this role for a year. I have 25 years in the wildfire realm. I'm originally from Paradise, California as well, and went through the campfire and all of that. My 25 years is spent between CAL FIRE, the Oregon Department of Forestry, and United States Forest Service. I do this work because I love that aha moment for the community members of, oh, this is how I connect actual research with protecting my home. And so when I moved to Bend, I was shocked at how little the community understood about their own risks, and not because of anybody else's fault. I mean, the science and the research and outreach that was done before me with Project Wildfire and Fire Free was absolutely amazing. I want to take that to the next level and try to figure out where's that actionable piece for homeowners. So I'm really big into the research side of things and continue to learn.
Great, thank you so much. Chief Hawkins.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Chad Hawkins. I serve as the Assistant Chief Deputy State Fire Marshal, overseeing the Fire and Life Safety Division here in Oregon. So I get the pleasure of working with folks to adopt the Oregon Fire Code and then the newly adopted Oregon Defensible Space Code as of May 1st. This is my 26th year in the fire service. I started with CAL FIRE, spent a long time down in California. I left California as a fire chief in 2015 and have subsequently been with the state fire marshal since then. What going back east meant to me, years in the fire service, I've been on probably 10 of the top 20 most destructive fires in California's history. And I harken back to my biggest fire that I was ever on in 2003, back when I was a younger firefighter. It was the Cedar Fire in Southern California, and it was about 270,000 acres. At the time, it was the biggest, most destructive, and the top three deadliest fires in California's history. It now ranks 6, 10, and I think 20 for as far as fatals, size of the fire, contiguous fire footprint, and then also the cost and the infrastructure loss there. So knowing that we continue to have a fire problem and how to address it, and not only at the local level, but at the statewide level to where we can get some consistency and application across the state to provide those Oregonians good resources and tools is really where my focus has been for the past about 5 years since the devastating fires of the 2020 fire season. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much to each of you. All of your experiences that you're going to bring to the table here today, I think are so valuable to be able to share with others. It looks like, as we've gone through our introductions as well, it's slowed down for who's joining us. I should mention as well, though, this will be recorded. It is being recorded, and so this will be something that also will be available later in case the time frame didn't work for individuals. So we'll make sure and get that shared. With that, Chief Hawkins, I know you were going to talk a little bit about the ADU burn itself and what happened, and just provide a little bit of background for the group.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. And so I'll just take about 5 minutes to just talk about what we had the opportunity to do in going out back east to IBHS's facility. You know, it's a huge, really complex, robust facility that has the capability to generate hurricane force winds and subsequently looks at a lot of things as it relates to natural disaster. But over the years, obviously, Evan and Steve can speak to it much better. The evolution of fire, resilience to wildfire, defensible space, home hardening, all those concepts, and the research they're able to do out there is second to none across the country and quite frankly across the world, where they can build and I would say put the elements together to make a true realistic fire scenario and see how some of those components of home hardening, having space, separation of structures, and truly the materials when you talk about home hardening, what they can do to make you successful in the event of a large scale fire. And so Cassie, maybe if you're able to, I know we have a couple pictures and a quick video. We could just go over really quick at a 90,000 foot level and then kind of walk you through it. So right here, super simple. Again, not trying to get into the complexities of Steve or Evan's work because there were so many research scientists there, universities that are a part of this burn. And so what they do is they construct two homes, right? They have a fuel source next to them that would be the ignition of where it would transfer that fuel or that fire to the house and then subsequently or potentially a second structure. So you see the pallets there. That's where we're going to ignite the fire, or we'd have that ember cast or ember shower occur. It lands next to that pile. You've got about 3 to 4 feet of separation from that pile to the house. What I found really interesting as we were able to walk through these structures is these were fully complemented with a fuel load, an appropriate fuel load for a modern house. There were couches. Quite frankly, I saw dirty socks and shoes and everything else inside the structure. So they take very particular attention to detail in these structures. And so we were able to walk through them. Full fuel load complements. The first house closest to us is actually built to California Chapter 7A standards, which is the home hardening standard for California, very similar to Oregon's R327 standard. So we were able to see, okay, this is a hardened home, I would say, to an appropriate level, base appropriate level, and then the house behind it in the foreground there. That's where you have the IBHS, what we call a wildfire prepared home. And that's really looking at all aspects, where you're boxing in eaves and you're, really looking at all of those components, not only the siding, but you're looking at the dual pane windows, you're looking at fiberglass frames, whereas the house closest to us maybe doesn't have all of those truly fire resistant features. It has some, but not all that are capable or are out there. So maybe we could play the video really quick, Cassie. So we didn't want to, there's all of us took lots of video. There were a lot of better ones, and I apologize, because it is in 4K. It'll probably take a second to catch up. But what you can see here is the basics. And I thought it was very interesting that you have a relatively hardened structure, that 7A standard from California, ignited within probably 5 to 7 minutes. And when I think ignition or a fully involved structure, you're talking about 5 to 7, maybe even 8 minutes. And that fire was already into the house. Now, given there is wind being generated and it's slowly increasing up to, I think we got to about 55-mile-an-hour winds, which were less than the 2020 Labor Day fires or even some of the other fires we've seen across Oregon. But you did see the transition from those pallets to the structure, and then subsequently started going towards that wildfire prepared home. And there was about, like I said, 3 to 5 foot spacing from the fuel source to the structure. And then Evan or Steve could probably correct me when they jump on here. I think there was 20 feet separation between the 7A house and the wildfire prepared home. And what we saw is that 7A house, again, withstood some, but ultimately, did get consumed by fire. And then eventually, as that fire burned, even with those 55-mile-an-hour winds, the result was you saw minimal, at best, damage to the wildfire prepared home that was right next to that fully involved structure, which I thought was very eye-opening to me. I'll use Melissa's word, aha moment, knowing that, yes, there's 20-foot separation, but also understanding separation, defensible space, those are kind of consistent. And then you get into the building materials themselves, and you saw very minimal fire damage after maybe 30 minutes of, I would say, hard fire being put right onto the side, direct flame impingement in some cases on that structure. So very impressive to see what they can do out there, and also put actual eyes on something that it applies back in Oregon, something we've been working on as a state for a long time, working with local municipalities to establish things like defensible space, home hardening components, and really putting all those pieces together, see how they act in the real fire world, and then try to take some of those points and bring them back to Oregon. So really impressive stuff. It's an awesome facility. If anyone's able to get out there with the organizations you represent, I encourage you. But yeah, that's just a 90,000 foot level, really quick 2-day synopsis in about 5 minutes, Chief McGrew. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for setting the stage for what you experienced there. I think the photos and the short videos certainly go a long way to help set the stage for what it is that we'll be talking through next. I'd like to transition over to Steve and to Evan. We're going to talk a little bit about the research and some of the pillars as they're connected to conflagration. And so I know you've had a lot of experience talking about these aspects, but we're certainly interested in what you have to provide with this piece.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Again, Steve Hawks, Senior Director for Wildfire at IBHS. And for the record, the dirty socks and shoes that Chad described are not mine, or I don't think they're Evan's either. But we do try to fully outfit those structures to give it a realistic, close to real world research experiment as possible. If you're not familiar with IBHS, we are a nonprofit organization that is funded by the insurance industry, and we conduct research on 4 perils: wind, wind-driven rain, hail, and wildfire. And in the wildfire space, we really focus on how the embers, the flames, the radiant heat produced by the fire can exploit vulnerabilities in a structure, leading to that ignition and loss. And we really put high value on that 1% or less than 1% of the fires that burn under the extreme conditions like you had during the Labor Day fires in 2020 with drought and high wind that lead to the large structural loss. So how do we significantly reduce the likelihood that a fire can transition from a start to a conflagration and lead to large structure loss? So as I mentioned, the conditions that really set the table for a conflagration to unfold is drought that occurs at any scale. It doesn't have to be a severe drought. Wind is the biggest component that drives extreme fire behavior and can push the fire through drought-stricken fuels and produce a lot of embers and loft into the air and deposit them into the community and push that fire into the community very quickly. And then we have the start of a fire near the community that's typically caused by humans. And so let's take a look at how a fire goes from a start to a conflagration. So it doesn't matter what starts the fire, it's just that we have the start of a fire near a community under those extreme conditions. And that fire is burning wildland fuels. And those fuels that are burning produce flames, radiant heat, and embers. And those embers under those high wind conditions get lofted into the air and can be carried downwind for miles. And when they land, either on a structure, maybe pass through a void space like a vent and go inside the structure, they can directly lead to the ignition of the home. Or if they land around the structure, they can ignite a combustible item, and then that fire can in turn indirectly lead to the ignition of the home. As you see, the Fort McMurray fire, we have this very large, high-intensity fire, but it was the embers in this particular location that brought the fire into the community here by landing in natural vegetation up against the side of the fence on the right-hand side. And those fires can then spread to the homes, leading to that structure ignition problem and then spread from structure to structure from there. So while the embers are flowing into the community, the flames from the leading edge of the fire will eventually run into the outer edge of the community. And those homes on that outer edge will be subjected to the flames, radiant heat, and the embers from the fire. And whether it's embers igniting homes within the community or the flames igniting homes on the outer edge, that fire at that point is transitioning from a wildland fire to an urban fire. And in this context, urban fire is the urban fuels. Anything that's combustible, including homes, sheds, vehicles, fences, mulch, etc., can ignite and does ignite under those extreme conditions and allows for the spread of the fire between structures and within the community. And at that point, there's a set of additional factors that really determine how destructive the fire can become. And the first one we look at is structure density, and it's the spacing between homes and other structures on the property. And the closer the spacing, the easier it is for one building that has ignited to directly lead to the ignition of the next one, particularly when that next structure is downwind from the first one. And Evan's going to talk about this and the research that we're doing on structure density. The next factor is connected fuels. And it's all those combustible items, those urban fuels that I mentioned just a minute ago, that can allow for the spread of the fire between structures and within the community. And Evan's also going to briefly mention some research we're doing on vegetative fuels. And then the last factor is the materials that the home or the surrounding structures, ADUs, etc., that are made of. And the more vulnerable the materials, the easier it is for the fire to ignite and exploit those vulnerabilities. So we put a lot of value on preventing the ignition in the first place. As I mentioned during my brief introductory, that I had a career with CAL FIRE, and one of the programs that I managed was a damage inspection program. And fortunately, that program has gotten a lot of use. And we found by analyzing the data that once a structure ignites or receives any amount of damage, it could be just a cracked window, blistered paint on the side of the house, that it's over 90% chance that it will be a complete loss. So we need